Okay, that's a really good tip. Thank you. When it comes to feeding this way, do you suggest that people maybe take a step back from supplementation? Because that's the biggest thing. It's like my biggest pet peeve when it comes to raw feeding is I see people come to raw feeding and first they want to know how to start raw feeding. And then the second question is, what are all the supplements that I need? Where it's just like, you don't know if you need supplements yet. Why are you asking?
Because they perceive that it's deficient. And that's like failure. You're just assuming that it's going to be a failure to begin with. I am just not into this supplementing thing at all. There is so much money to be made out in the marketplace for selling supplements. It seems like anybody who's telling you how great supplements are either got their information from this system that's teaching people that that natural foods are deficient, or somebody that's already selling that stuff. And there's more marketing in it than truth. There is a book called Whole, WHOLE, by T. Colin Campbell, and he talks about this idea of using fake food fragments to supplement the diet. And he cites all of these studies that are sitting on shelves collecting dust because they don't make anybody money, but they prove unequivocally that people who take supplements don't do as well as people who don't take supplements. And they actually run studies, and they'll have, say 100 people, 1,000 people or whatever with the same disease condition. They give 50% of them the supplements. They don't give 50, the control group any supplements, and the control group does better than the supplemented group. And we don't have those studies on dogs because nobody's doing them.
Yeah,
right?
There's no money in that. You got to find someone who's willing to pay for it. And if it's not going to ultimately lead to them making more money, they're not going to pay for it. And that is not surprising to me. I have anemia. And for years, I was taking iron supplements. And I mean, it was one of those where I wasn't consistent in taking them because it never seemed like they were working. And a friend told me about a company called Ancestral Supplements, where their supplements are actually just the meat, like grass-fed beef and the different organs in grass-fed beef. And so I started taking the spleen and saw a difference immediately. And I don't even have to take as much as the bottle recommends. It's part of my diet. And it's just like, someone told me years ago, the difference between like taking a vitamin C pill versus eating an orange. It's like when we're taking that pill, we lose out on all of the other things in the orange that make that vitamin C so effective. And that has really stayed with me when it comes to choosing things for my dogs. It's like, if I am going to choose a supplement, I want it to basically be a concentrated version of the food, where they took a lot of the food, air dried it or freeze dried it, broke it down to a powder, and here you go, rather than just one nutrient that they've isolated and it's now synthetic, and that's what I'm giving to my dogs.
Right. The problem with that is that even when they do that, it's missing the context of the food, because there are things that you can't just take the water out of food. When you take the water out of food, other things go with it too. And since we've only identified, I've heard this, 10% of all the nutrients in food, we don't know what we're missing. We don't know what we're losing out on when we're dehydrating food or when we're fractionating it in any way. So I think the best way is to do no supplementation at all. I have never supplemented a dog's food in my life. And so many people have been liberated from this idea that they have to spend so much money on these. It's a hugely expensive industry, right? There's a reason why they're so expensive, and it's because you have to pay for that whole food, and then you have to get it down into this, packageable form. And that takes a lot of it, right? It takes a lot of the whole food, and it takes a lot of labor and machinery to get it down into that form. So it's very expensive. I'd much rather have people paying that, using their money for real food and just going to the store or finding the best possible source of food. And it is out there. You do have to do a little bit of footwork to find it. But not necessarily. If you have a small dog, like I have a 12-pound dog, I have one 12-pound dog to feed. I can go to the Asian store, buy a 6-pack of quail, and that's her food for 2 weeks, you know, and along with the other, you know, the plant foods that I buy for her. That's the empowerment that I want to give to people. But if you have multiple dogs, like you have big dogs, you have 4 dogs, it really behooves you to go out looking into the, you know, raw feeding world and see what's out there, you know, acquisition wise, supply wise. But as far as supplements go, I just don't recommend. I recommend giving all of them up and just feeding cleanly digestible foods. I don't think that supplements are made use of by a dog's body because of that missing context. There's more risk in that than there is in the deficiency risk. Deficiency is what we always think about, because when you can add something into the diet, that gives some marketer out there an opportunity to sell you something. And that's why we're always being told, add something, add this, add that. No, what you mostly want to do is take stuff away. You want to remove the cause. You want to remove the waste.
A friend of mine often says that when she notices that someone is constantly talking about adding stuff, but not really being specific, but just talking about it, and deficiency, she was like, within a year or so, they're going to come out with the product. And everyone's going to be primed to buy it because they've been telling them about adding it. And I was just sort of like, oh my gosh, that's kind of that's an interesting thought. And it's one of those things where with the pet industry, you know, I feel like I think that there are so many people who are in this industry because they love animals and for a good reason. But you also have to make money. And it's not a place where there are many people that are stopping you or standing in your way of producing products. And I notice as a blogger, I get contacted by companies all the time to promote their things. And the number of websites that are strictly focused on supplements for dogs or pets is astounding. I mean, I get emails from them all the time, and the people that I'm talking to can't tell you anything about, I mean, now I just don't even bother responding to the emails. Or if I do, I just say, no, thank you. But they don't really know anything about the products that they're doing, like the sourcing or how it was processed. And, you know, what are your reviews? I mean, I had one person where I told her, you know, because she was like, I was hoping you can do a review. We'll send you the stuff. And I told her, I was like, it takes 3 to 6 months for me to do a review on a supplement. And I was like, because I need to see how it's going to do with my dog over the long haul. And she was like, oh, no, you'll see improvement right away. And I was like, well, no, that's the honeymoon period. You know, when you add something new, a lot of times the dog will rebound and stuff, but will they stay that way a month later, 6 months later? And it's like, if they're not, I want my followers to know that, you know, in my experience, this wasn't the thing, because I have had that happen in the past, and they were just sort of like, oh, okay, well then never mind. And that was my answer right there. It's like, you guys don't even have faith in your product to allow me to give it a proper review.